Having the title of launch customer is both an honour and a risk. Of course, if the plane maker and regulators do their due diligence, risks should be minimised by the time an aircraft enters service. It's most common that being a launch customer for a new type, and sometimes new variant of an existing type, is something to be proud of and something to emphasise in marketing. And so when it comes to Airbus aircraft, which carriers were launch customers for each variant? We take a look for today's video. One quick note before we get into things, we won't be providing too much detail about each variant since there are just so many aircraft to get through. We also won't be covering launch customers for private/business versions of these jets. So, the first commercial flight of the Airbus A300 was on May 23, 1974, when Air France operated the aircraft from Paris to London. The launch customer of the A310 was Swiss Air, which began commercial service with the type in April 1983. The A310 is smaller than the A300 in terms of fuselage and wing area and holds fewer passengers. The launch customer for the Airbus A300-600 was Saudi Arabian Airlines, which first flew the aircraft in 1984. With a longer fuselage than the previous A300B2 and B4 variants, the A300-600 proved to be quite popular as it provided more cabin space for passengers and crew. Moving on to the A320 family, Airbus started producing these narrow bodies in 1987, and as with the A300, Air France introduced the type first in April 1988. For other first-generation A320 family variants, the A319 entered service in April 1996 with Swiss Air, the A318 took off with Frontier Airlines in July 2003, and the A321 entered commercial service with Lufthansa in January 1994. Moving forward a few decades to the A320 Neo family, the first Airbus A319 Neo passenger service was operated by China Southern Airlines in February 2022. The first Airbus A320 Neo entered commercial service with Lufthansa on January 25, 2016. As for the A321 Neo, it entered commercial service with Virgin America on May 31, 2017. The following year, in July 2018, Turkish Airlines took delivery of the first A321 Neo in cabin flex configuration. This version had modifications to the fuselage enabling flexible cabin configurations for up to 240 passengers. It has since become the standard fuselage configuration for all A321 Neo variants. And then when it comes to the A321 Neo's special longer range variants, the first A321 Neo LR entered commercial service with Turkish Airlines on July 12, 2018. This information comes via a press release from Safran. However, somewhat confusingly, a press release from Airbus itself a few months later stated that Arkia Israeli Airlines was the launch operator of the A321 LR, having taken the world's first airframe of this variant. So we're not quite sure what to make of this discrepancy. Our guess is that Safran had confused the first A321 Neo ACF with the first A321 LR. But again, that's just our guess. Most recently, the first A321 XLR service was operated by Iberia, with the initial flight taking place on November 6, 2024. We have a special video of that inaugural flight, so do check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Moving on, the A330 family was developed in tandem with the A340. The A330-300 entered service with launch customer Air Inter in January 1994. The first -200 entered commercial service with Canada 3000 in 1998. Maybe this is getting too detailed, but the A330-300 HGW was delivered to Delta Airlines in May 2015. The HGW was an evolution of the A330-300, offering an increased MTOW of 242 tons, up from 235. The version would have a strengthened wing and additional fuel capacity. As you'll see later on in this video, Airbus developed quite a few sub-variants with increased gross weight. In August 2016, Airbus delivered the world's first A330-300 regional to Saudi Arabian Airlines. In case you're only learning about this variant now, the A330-300 regional was a variant optimized for missions up to 2,700 nautical miles, around a 5-hour flight. Such a range covers short to medium-haul routes and thus offered cost savings through a reduced operational weight of around 200 tons. But moving on, Etihad Airways took delivery of its first A330-200 freighter in July 2010. The first A330-200 P2F, an A330-200 converted from passenger to freighter, was delivered to Egypt Air Cargo on August 3, 2018. The Royal Australian Air Force was the launch customer for the Airbus A330 MRTT and took first delivery in 2017. The Airbus A330-900 first entered commercial service with TAP Air Portugal in December 2018, while the first -800 entered service with Kuwait Airways in November 2020. At the time of this video's production, we know that Airbus is going to develop the A330 MRTT Plus, a military variant based on the A330-800. However, no launch customer has been announced just yet. Our guess is the Air Force of a European nation, but we'll just have to wait and see. For the A340 family, the first A340-200 joined Lufthansa in February 1993 and was put into service in March of that year. The first Airbus A340-300 entered commercial service in March 1993 with Air France. The first airline to receive the Airbus A340-300E was Singapore Airlines. Featuring improved engines and upgraded avionics, the first was delivered in 1996. Not to be confused with the A340-300E, there was also the A340-300 Enhanced. This variant entered service with South African Airways in 2003. Fitted with even more advanced CFM engines, it also had avionics similar to those found on the -500/600 series. The A340-500 entered commercial service in December 2003 with Emirates. Air Canada was supposed to be the launch customer for this variant, but wasn't able to carry through with this as it had filed for bankruptcy in January 2003. The A340-500 IGW meaning increased gross weight, was delivered to Thai Airways in April 2005. The larger -600 had its first commercial flight in July 2002 with Virgin Atlantic. The launch customer for the Airbus A340-600 high gross weight or HGW variant was Qatar Airways. The airline took delivery of their first A340-600 HGW in late 2006. In January 2015, the first commercial Airbus A350-900 entered service with Qatar Airways. The One World carrier was also the launch customer for the larger A350-1000 variant, which entered service in February 2018. The Airbus A350-900 ULR, with ULR standing for Ultra Long Range, first entered commercial service with Singapore Airlines on October 11, 2018. The airline deployed the jet on its iconic Singapore to New York route. As for the A380 Super Jumbo, Singapore Airlines took delivery of the first commercial airframe in October 2007. The Airbus A380F's launch customer was supposed to be American logistics giant FedEx. The company would ultimately cancel their order, and the variant would never be developed. And finally, we have to talk about the Airbus A220. As many of our viewers will already know, Airbus didn't design this aircraft. Bombardier launched the type under the name C-Series back in 2013. Swiss International Airlines introduced the first CS100 in 2016, while Air Baltic later received the first CS300. These two aircraft are now known as the Airbus A220-100 and A220-300. When it comes to future Airbus aircraft, Singapore Airlines is expected to be the launch customer for the A350F. So, there you have it, all the launch customers of Airbus commercial aircraft, including higher weight subvariants, freighters, and a military variant thrown in as well. Naturally, the most excitement goes to the first flight of a completely brand new type, But as we've seen with the very recent A321 XLR inaugural service, there can also be excitement around new variants as well. So we have to ask, have you ever been on the first flight of a new aircraft type or new variant? Let us know by leaving a comment. In addition to our daily YouTube videos, Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles and a podcast every week. Visit simpleflying.com.